we want to welcome Jim and Chris Gould. And some of you, hopefully all of you, have seen them before. They're the Geeks on Tour. And they, they've been teaching technology to other, people, and especially RVers that go around the country and go to RV camps and have a lot of fun. And she's probably going to tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that they do and some of the meetups that they go to and what have you. Please welcome. Wait.
Geeks on Tour.
Geeks on Tour. Yes, I'm sorry. So it's Geeks on Tour is their website, and Chris is going to go over all the details, and you can sign up for their newsletter if you haven't already done so, and all that kind of good stuff. So welcome, Jim and Chris Gould.
Thanks, Marcelino. And is Babette there? I would say hi to Babette.
Yeah, she could not make it, so.
Because she contacted us first. I don't know. It must be 8 years ago or so, because it was when we were teaching mostly Picasa. And we came to the Golden Gate Computer Society, and we've also done some hands-on classes in the classroom you just talked about. And I would love to be there for your next speaker about photography across China. Wow, that sounds awfully cool. Well, I'm Chris Gould, and Jim is here, but we are in our little camper van right now, coming to you from Tampa, Florida. And this topic is really all mine, so we figured the easiest way is just me and my computer. So say hi, Jim. Hi. and that's it. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is photo editing using a mobile app called Snapseed. And let me share my screen again. And so taking your photos from so-so to stunning with the free app called Snapseed on your mobile devices. And yes, we are geeksontour.com, and I want to tell you just a little bit about us. How many people have seen us before, been to a Geeks on Tour presentation? Oh, that looks like maybe even a majority of you. Cool. All right. But even you might not know some of our backstory. So I just have a few pictures here. And if you go to our website at geeksontour.com, there you can read our latest newsletter and sign up for our free email newsletter. You can learn something new today. I always post one of our tutorial videos here. Read our newsletter. Watch our What Does This Button Do show, which is a YouTube show. We've done 183 episodes all about technology, smartphones, and tablets. And then there's a little bit about us. So I'd like to just take a couple minutes to give you some of the rest of the story. It all started back in 1983. Anybody recognize these computers?
Oh, yes.
I started teaching on Apple IIe's. We had a classroom of Apple IIe's, and then we moved up and bought a classroom of IBM PCs. These computers, notice there's not even any graphics. No graphics, no color, just green text on the screen, and we paid $5,000 each for those. And we had 12 in a classroom. It's a lot easier these days to teach technology. We just tell people, bring your smartphones and we'll show you how to use them. And my specialty then was WordPerfect. I was one of the first WordPerfect certified instructors in the country. And this was what our training center looked like from 1983 to 1996, and this was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And that's where I met Jim. He built the computers that I bought for our computer training center. And we got along so well, we got married. And this was even back in 1998. We wore our funky little propeller head hats. Then we wanted some adventure, so we sold the house and we bought an RV on eBay. We paid $30,000 for this and we lived in it full time for 8 years. We traveled all over the country and we learned how to make our living on the road using a subscription website. So that's still what we are doing today. And we teach at RV rallies, computer clubs, and even people's homes, senior centers, all sorts of stuff as we travel around the country. Right now, we are in Tampa, Florida at an RV rally. So this is the kind of thing we do around the country. And this was our second RV. We lived in it for 6 years. So we were full time without a house, just living in an RV, traveling the country for 14 years total. And we taught classes. Now we do mostly smartphone help. And I love when when I get to be one-on-one with people and actually see their issues with their phones. And this is where I'm sitting right now, actually. This is in the back of our little camper van, because we now do have a townhouse in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but we still travel all over and camp in and live for months at a time in this little camper. So that's what we're doing now. It's called a road trek, and we love our road trek. And this was just last year. We were out in the Tetons. And we even produce our YouTube show from the back of our camper van. So we have a television studio in our camper van. And we take a lot of pictures as we travel. And this is why we downsize, because this is home, and this little camper van can actually park in the parking spaces allotted for cars in our community. I am a Google Photos product expert, platinum level, and I wrote a book on Google Photos. And Snapseed, which I'm teaching you tonight, is a companion program. It is by Google, and it is free. And if you go to our website, geeksontour.com, and Snapseed, you'll see where I've just finished building a course, an online course on Snapseed. And you can just get that course for $30, and we are offering a 50% discount code in the handout that you all have. So geeksontour.com, Snapseed. Okay. So I'd like to get a little bit of an idea from you guys. How many of you do take pictures with your phones?
I think everybody here does.
Everybody. All right, isn't it amazing? They're just so easy, and they are great cameras. I take thousands of pictures, and we travel all over to some beautiful places. And I am by no stretch of the imagination a professional photographer, but I love it when people look at my pictures and say, ooh and ah. The ones that they say about are ones that I used Snapseed on. So, and it works on both Apple and Android, but still, once again, a raise of hands then for how many are iPhone? That looks like a majority. Android? Okay, yeah, just a couple of Android. Okay, well, I have both just for that reason. Our audiences are usually about 50-50. Snapseed does work exactly the same once you're in Snapseed. Getting there is a little bit different, so it really doesn't matter which phone I show you on. Let me ask another though. How many of you use Snapseed now? Does anybody there actually use Snapseed? Ah, we got one.
2 hands. 1, 2.
Okay. Well, if you have anything to add as I go through this, I'd be happy to hear your comments and your questions. As I say, I can hear there is a bit of a delay because I'm I'm 3 hours different from you, and this is going 3,000 miles over the internet, but I do hear you pretty well. So, how many of you use Google Photos? Okay, more, but still not all of you. I love Google Photos. That's my number one thing that I teach. And you can use Snapseed from Google Photos. I call it a round trip. I have all my photos visible to me in Google Photos. I can open any one of them, take it to Snapseed, do the magic, and come back to Google Photos. That's the way I like to do it. But you don't have to. You can use Snapseed standalone. So let me start out, and I'm going to share here. So photo editing with Snapseed. We do have a course. It would probably take you an hour to an hour and a half to go through the whole course at geeksontour.com Snapseed. Snapseed is for iPhone and iPad and Android tablets. It is not available for computers. This is mobile device only. And it's not just me that thinks Snapseed is great. Here's a quote by Android Authority. This is the photo editor we'd recommend first, followed by Adobe apps and everything else. And for iPhone, I found the iPhone Photography School says if you're new to iPhone photography, this really should be the first photo editor app you download and learn. Snapseed is by Google, so it works in cooperation with Google Photos. Now, you do have to have it installed. So let me show you. So you should now be seeing, come on, turn on. Be seeing my phone. And this is an Android. It happens to be a Samsung Note 10. And you would get Snapseed from the Play Store. So you would just open the Play Store, find Snapseed, and install it. I already have it on the phone, and on the iPhone, same difference, except it's just the App Store, right? So this is an iPhone. You'd go to the App Store and search for Snapseed. And there it is. And I also already have it installed on my iPhone. So I'll start with the iPhone first. And in the Snapseed app, right there, you can, as I say, you can use it as a standalone app. You would open Snapseed, and then you would tap the plus to go get a photo. So open from device, and I would see the photos that are on this device. So here's a nice one of our camper at a campsite. And actually this looks like it. Do you think this looks kind of extra pretty? I think this has already been edited in Snapseed because I do. Anytime I take a pretty picture, I instantly open it up, put it into Snapseed, and see how much prettier I can make it. But let me show you some of the tools. You tap on Tools, and then like Details is a good one. And all you do is rub your finger to the right, and it gives you more detail. Rub it to the left, and it gives you less. Or let's pick something, and you tap check mark. And there are all sorts. Look at all these tools. You know, let's say I wanted to make this darker. I'm into Tune Image, and I can scroll. I now, to get all my choices, rub my finger up and down. And let's say I wanted less brightness. I rub my finger to the left to get darker, to the right to get lighter. If you like what you've done, you tap check mark. And then on the iPhone, I would tap export and save. And because it's Apple, it asks for permission for everything. So I have to say modify, yes. And that photo has been saved. And I could go back out, and if I look in my Apple Photos, I would see in my all photos. Well, see, now this is why, there it is. This is why I like using Google Photos to start with. So now I'm gonna switch over. You'll see on my Android, it really looks just the same as on the Apple. Boy, I don't know why that's looking so orange.
You have the night mode on?
Ah, that's because it's 10:30 here. Yes, thank you. I didn't, I'm not used to this. Now, where is that? That's in display. It goes on.
Well, it's not on.
Well, the blue light filter was, so that does it. Yes, well, there's something about this document camera that also makes it orangey, but it's not as orangey. Okay, so on my Google Photos, I have thousands. I have nearly 100,000 photos, and I can pick any one of them. They don't have to be on the phone, and I can edit in Snapseed. Now let me go back here first, because I have some slides to introduce this. And if I don't follow my slides, I might forget something. So you can go from Google Photos to Snapseed and back. And there are some simple edits that make a huge difference, like this one of Jim walking on the beach. Okay, I'm going to do that one for you. And I've made a album of photos just for this purpose, and there is the one of Jim walking on the beach. So can you see how dark that is? This is Google Photos that I have up right now, and there's a lot of editing that you can do with Google Photos, but I'm here to show you Snapseed. The way you get to Snapseed from Google Photos in the Android is the edit button, then the 9 dot, it's their meeting. Then the 9 dot grid, and then as long as Snapseed is installed, it will show up here. Edit 9 dot grid Snapseed. And now it's having to download this because all of my Google Photos are online. This color really isn't right. Let me. I just want to look at some. No, because the phone. I'm looking at the phone. The phone looks white. It's the screen that's.
Oh, your camera.
Yeah, it's the camera white balance. Yeah. Any ideas, Jim?
There is a white balance on what camera?
On this.
Yeah, right there, it's at the 5300.
Where?
Yeah, on the right. See where the white balance is on the right? 5380K.
In the black box.
Over here. Okay. That's
Is there an
hidden.
adjustment there?
Yeah. I see the white balance. How do I adjust that though? That's just telling me visualizer. Oh, that was the info that came up.
Settings.
So here and general, is there any more? No.
Are those the only settings for the camera?
Oh, because the white is white. It's the actual display.
Well, okay. I gotta go on.
You didn't test this.
I did. It was not that orange when I did it earlier. It wasn't.
Pretend it's white.
Okay. Pretend it's white. And see all these? These are just standard filters down here at the bottom where it says looks. And there's this one called morning is way cool. I just tap on morning and you see how boom, it makes the whole picture looks like it's in the sunrise. And if you like it, you tap the check mark. And then on the Android, to get back to Google Photos, it's as simple as tapping done.
Does it save the original or does it get overwritten?
It does both. I mean, if you are, that's a big question. And I think I have it on a slide. Okay, so yeah, hold that question. I will absolutely get to it. So what I did right then was I opened a photo in Google Photos. I went to Snapseed, applied a filter, and came back to Google Photos. All right. We've already installed the app, and you can use it as a standalone. I did that. Now, when you save, so it depends on how you save it and where it came from. But the answer is it never overwrites your original. It either makes a copy of it or adds the layers, the stacks to your original. So, and most often than not, it makes a copy. So if you use save, the results are still editable in Snapseed. It saves over the original when done without Google Photos. When you do it with Google Photos, it always makes a copy. That's just the way it works. And then there are a bunch of tools. And I will show you most of the ones that are outlined in red. You know, not all of them. And I'll refer to your handout as well. So we're definitely going to do the HDR. That's my favorite tool, is the HDR scape. We will do tune image and details. we'll do healing and brush and text. Okay. So now I'm ready to just demo on some photos.
There is a white balance setting in there somewhere.
Let me see the iPad. It's a little bit bigger. Okay. So any other questions before I go on? All right. So this is the iPad because it's a little bit bigger screen to show you, and Google Photos. Now this is a lot wider. Now I just hope I have access to all the same pictures. And it's on the internet. Come on. There we go. Okay. So here's a picture of the Grand Canyon. Pretty nice picture, I think. But every time I take a pretty picture, I want to see if Snapseed can make it awesome. On the iDevices, the way you get from Google Photos, that's where I am, to Snapseed is just to swipe up on the picture. And there is Open in Snapseed. And it has to download the image. Oh, something went wrong. Come on. Open in Snapseed.
Shut this down.
Okay. Let me see if I have any better luck with this one. Nope. And 8.
Click on the 3 dots.
What?
Click on the 3 dots. That opened it for me.
Yeah, clicking on the 3 dots now does the exact same thing as swiping up on the photo. 3 dots or swipe up does the exact same thing. So I'm on the iPhone now, and it's doing a little bit better. And open in Snapseed. There we go. Okay. So now I'm in Snapseed. And one thing to know is whether you hold, if I hold the phone vertical, you see I have looks, tools, and export. If I hold it horizontally, the words go away, but that little pencil there means tools, that means looks, and that means export. So I'm going to go to Tools and show you the HDR scape. One tap on the HDR scape, and can you see how more dramatic the photo got just by that one tap? And it says filter strength equals 50. The way Snapseed works is once you have applied some effect, you can get more of the effect simply by rubbing your finger to the right. And you can get less of the effect by rubbing your finger to the left. So there's more of the effect, there's less of the effect. See the difference? More and less. So you can just rub until the picture is right about where you like it. I like it there. and I tap the check mark because I like that. And now on the iPhone, I have to tap the export and save. And there, it doesn't automatically take me back to Google Photos, but I can just double press the home button to multitask and get back to Google Photos. Next one. This is a picture of Chicago waterfront, the Navy Pier, and it was at sunset. I thought it was really pretty, but this photo doesn't do it justice. I swipe up, open in Snapseed, and I'm going to use that same HDR scape. Tools and HDR scape, and look at that. Now you can tell what the original was with using this little button right here. If I touch on that, it'll show me my original picture, my improved picture. What do you think?
Yeah, nice.
Wow.
Isn't that one more worthy of an ooh and ah than that one? And if I think, very good, there you go. And if I think I could improve it even more by rubbing over, I can. That's maybe going a little too far. But you see what it does, and this is just with the HDR. I like that. I check mark, and I export and save. Now, you ask, where did that photo go? Now, if I had just taken this picture and I open it up in Snapseed and come back, I would see it right next to the original. So that's nice, you know, and that's the way I usually do it. I take a picture, I open it up, I make it look better in Snapseed, and it's right next to it. But number one, these are all in an album, so the new edited photo doesn't go back in the album. And number two, I've had to copy it down. Now, where is that photo in Google Photos? In order to make these easily accessible, I've changed the date. You see, Google Photos keeps all of your photos in order by date. So I have put all these sample photos in January 1970, just to keep them out of the way, but all together. And I just want to show you this one so you can see that it has made a copy. And of the, I'm looking for the Navy Pier photo. So the original is still there. And it sometimes takes a while for the edited one to show up. But it will either be right next to the original in 1970, or it will be today's edited date. And I do have it written up in the course exactly which occurs when, but you will find it in one of those. That I don't have Wi-Fi. Hey. So there it is. It's waiting to get backed up. Okay. The rest of this, I'm just going to be showing you the tools in Snapseed. So that was the HDR tool. So I'm curious, the one person there who said you use Snapseed, do you use the HDR tool?
Yes, I do. But carefully.
Right.
You can get a lot of people to do it.
Yes. Yes. The HDR scape can be overwhelming, which is why for this next one, I'm going to show you tuning. So here's a picture. I happen to love picnic tables. It's just I do this up. Okay. And I could use HDR on this, but yes, HDR can be a bit heavy-handed. So I'm going to open in Snapseed and show you the tuning tool. And this is in your handout. Tune image in Snapseed. Tools, and the very first two tools, tune image and details. And there's a reason why they are the first two tools. They are the main ones that you should be using. Tune image has a lot of options. Now I can rub my finger up and down and reveal all of the options. And my favorite one in here is the one called ambiance. It's kind of like an HDR scape, but it's not as heavy-handed. Notice it says ambiance 0 up at the top there. If I rub my finger to the right, I am getting ambiance more and less. So you see what it does? It both lightens the shadows and fills in the sky. Notice how the sky is totally washed out here in the original and the shadows are so dark underneath the picnic table. When I rub over to the right, it's both getting detail in the shadow and adding color to the sky. I like that. I'm going to save it with the check mark. Now I want to show you details. Details has two options, structure and sharpening. Structure, if I go over to the right, gives it almost a three-dimensional effect there. And I just think that's a much prettier picture than the original. I can check mark and export and save. Okay. And next picture. Oh, I like this one too. This is our camper in a really pretty camp spot in Florida. Not too far from here, actually. But the picture, it just doesn't do it justice. Swipe up, open in Snapseed. And I'm going to use the tuning. I'm going to use tuning and ambiance. Swipe to the right. And it gives me detail in the shadows. It gives me a little bit of color. It gives me a little bit of depth. I like it. And I'll do some detail as well. Just rub to the right. And I like that. Export and save. Back to Google Photos. And the next picture. This is Jim and I here. Up, open in Snapseed, but it's really dark. It's really dark. Well, one of the things in the tune image, if you up, so we are in the shadows. There's an option called shadows. If I increase that, it means give me more light in the shadows. Let me see what is in the shadow. So if I swipe to the right, it goes lighter. or to the left, it goes darker. So, and that's all that is just giving me more light in the shadows. I can see the original by tapping on that little button. See how it increased the light in the shadows? But I also, while I'm in tuning, want to try ambiance. Swipe over to the right. Ooh, it's almost starting to look like a painting now. I really like that. And you can adjust it so that it's just right. And I like that. I'll accept those changes with the check mark, export, and save. And back to Google Photos. Heal. This is handy. See that scratch on his face? Very easy to fix with Snapseed. Swipe up. Oops, I didn't mean that. Open in Snapseed. Get the tool called Healing. The hardest part is finding it. Look at all these tools. Healing is the one that looks like a couple of Band-Aids. Now I use 2 fingers on the screen to zoom in on just that scratch. And then all you do is tap it. And that's all he needed. Scratch is gone. I accept the change, export, and save. And modify. Back to Google Photos. And I have just another couple examples here of healing. This pumpkin patch, I think, is a pretty picture, but look at this stupid piece of garbage right there. Swipe up, open in Snapseed. Tools, healing, and just touch on the piece of garbage. Now I kind of messed up there a little bit. You see how my touch also touched the pumpkin so I can undo that. Then I should zoom in a little bit so that I don't make that mistake. And you can touch a couple of times if need be. I think that looks good. I can check mark. Actually, let's do one more thing to that. How about some ambiance on this one? Tools. Where was ambiance? Which tool do I choose to get ambiance?
Tune image.
Very good. Okay. And then I swipe up and down, find ambiance. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Maybe some details also. All right. And I wanted to go through all that in order to introduce you to the concept of stacks. So I just did several different things to this picture. What if now, for some reason, I wanted that piece of garbage back, but I wanted to keep the ambiance and the structure? Stacks is this little button right here. It's kind of like layers if you've ever used Photoshop. And you tap on View Edits. Now in the lower right-hand corner here, it's showing me all the different things that have been done to this picture. And I can tap on any one of those and I can, I can say undo that healing, trash that, and then put the others back. So that's what stacks is. Now I'm actually just going to put that one back to the original. And discard changes. Come on. Whoa, I don't know where. All right, I'm gonna go back to Google Photos now, and I'm gonna skip that one. And I wanna go over, because where are we at time? I have, how long do we go to? Like, it's
yeah,
a,
yeah, we can do another, what, half an hour?
Oh.
Good?
okay. Okay, then maybe I will go back to, yeah, let me show you something about the healing tool then. Let's say I want to take this whole sign out. You know, healing is wonderful, but really only for little things. If I go into healing and I want to try to take this whole sign out, see how it gets messed up in there? And yes, you can do some more, but each time it might get more and more messed up. I can undo, 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 and maybe do it in there. That's not bad, but my first two examples were just so easy that I didn't want you to think it was complete magic. If you have something bigger, it might take a little bit of work and it might be next to impossible. There are other tools that do that even better, but that's not too bad. I can accept it, export, and save. And back to Google Photos. And my next example is text on photo. So here's a picture of the Peace River here in Florida. First of all, this picture it's a pretty picture, but it should be prettier. So I'm going to go open in Snapseed. And this happens once in a while in the iPhone. Since there isn't a elegant round trip from Google Photos to Snapseed and back, sometimes a picture gets kind of stuck. And the only way I have figured out to unstuck it is to force quit. So I double tap the home button, force quit Snapseed. Now when I open a new photo in Snapseed, it gets a clean start. And I see the picture that I want to be editing. So first off, I'm going to do some ambiance. I just really like ambiance. Ooh, that sky is just so much better than the original. And how about even a little bit of saturation? A little bit extra color. Okay. Now I want this to say Peace River. I want words right on the picture to say Peace River. That's the text tool. It says double tap here to change text. It says double tap, but I found that just a single tap is all you really need. And I type Peace River. Come on. Peace River. But I don't like that text. First of all, I can move it around. Just drag it around anywhere. I can make it smaller by squeezing it with 2 fingers. I can make it bigger by spreading 2 fingers apart. Or I can change the whole look of it by tapping on this little deck of cards down here. I like that text. I can change the color by tapping on the little color palette. So if I want yellow, I think is pretty good there. Or I can change the look completely by making it kind of a badge. There's just all sorts of styles is what they call this here. And you can just play with them till you see one you like. For this picture, I kind of like the plain, and I think I'll put that down along the dark. That looks nice. And export and save. Okay, my photos are now, those messages you've been seeing, those photos are now being seen in my Google Photos. It takes a while. And I now go back to Google Photos. And the next picture, now this picture definitely needs some words. Jim and I were at kayaking in Venice. Anybody recognize that, the bridge on the Grand Canal? So I want this to say, kayaking in Venice. Swipe up, open in Snapseed. All right, I have to do my little trick of force quitting Snapseed, going back to Google Photos, open in Snapseed. Tools, text, double tap, and kayaking in Venice.
Chris,
And that, yes.
can you show where you found the stacks again? I missed that.
Okay. I'm actually going to do another one on that. Okay. Yeah, I don't like that badge. Let's see. Need a different color. Well, you can play with this stuff forever. There, right in front of Jim's face. There, that's the good place for that. Okay, the stacks was that little button right there. It appears when you have finished any given tool, but you haven't yet saved and exited the. And actually, for the stacks demo, I would like to play you one of our little videos, and this is also a sample of the lessons that you would find in the course, in the Snapseed course. So let me load that up for you. So this lesson is going to be about stacks and the stack brush, which is very powerful. Oops. Were you hearing the sound with that?
No, there was no sound.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was afraid of that because there's something. There's a little button here that I have to click on to make sure that computer sound is okay. So it. Hi, this is Chris Gould, and this Show Me video is about. So you hear the sound then?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Understanding Snapseed's stacks and then the stacks brush. Now I want to just introduce you to this issue called stacks. This little button up here means stacks. And if I tap it and tap View Edits, down in the lower right, it shows me everything I've done to this photo. So let's say that I decide now that that HDR scape was maybe a bit too much for this picture. I think the Toon image had everything I needed. So I can tap on HDR scape and trash can. I can remove the HDR scape, but put back the pieces that I did with the Toon image. So that's what the stack is. But now I want to show you some really cool ways that you can use it with the brush. This one. So this is the Grand Canyon again, and I would like to do an HDR. Open in Snapseed. Oops, I haven't shown you the brush yet. I can't show you the stack brush. Sorry, I will get back to that, but I need to show you the brush before I can show you the stack brush. So back to my camera here. Okay. So here is a picture of Yellowstone Falls, Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Swipe up, open in Snapseed. See, the Android really works so much more smoothly, but the iPhone works. Open in Snapseed. First of all, it's way too dark, but the ambiance should get rid of that. I tune, and I can ambiance. So right there is pretty, but I would like it to look like the waterfall and the river are bright and shiny. So I'll check that. And now I'm going to use the brush, because everything else I've shown you so far has affected the entire picture, right? Now I just want to affect the waterfall. So I went into brush, and I have dodge and burn, exposure, temperature, and saturation. I just want to kind of overexpose the waterfall. So I'll tap exposure, and 0.7 is probably pretty good. I want to zoom in so that I can just brush there. See how I made the waterfall brighter just by brushing exposure on to the waterfall and to the river. That is brush. And one more example of brush, and then I'll go back to the stack brush video. Here, this one, I cannot change the exposure of the whole picture, or the outside will be way overexposed, but you can't see Jim at all here. So open in Snapseed. Open, I have to close Snapseed first and then open this. There we go. Now first I'll try to just brighten the shadows. That was in Toon Image, Shadows, and Brighten. And that helps. You can now see Jim, but he's still dark. So I'm going to go to Tools, Brush, and Exposure, and zoom in. And now I can just lighten up his face and his shirt. And that's better. So brush allows you to kind of paint the picture. The brush tool itself only offers exposure, and color. Now we'll go back to the video and you'll see the power of the stack brush. Tools and HDRscape. And I like that. I think it could use even more. So how do I get more? Rub the finger to the right and I get more. This is a little bit too light. I wonder if I can make it a little darker. So I will rub my finger up and down and I do see a brightness option. I can rub my finger to the left to get less brightness. And then back to the filter strength. So I really like that for the canyon, but notice that it's gotten a bit much up in the branches here. And that happens with HDR. You get these artifacts around the branches. The bright light and the dark just doesn't work. So I want this HDR effect on the canyon and not so much on the sky. Let me show you how. First, I will accept this. I'll tap the check mark to say, yes, this is the level of HDR that I'm going to use. But now I'm going to go into the stack and I say, I want to brush that feature on to the canyon and not so much to the sky. Stacks and view edits. And on the HDRscape here, see the little arrow to the left? Tap the little arrow to the left, and now there's a brush. I choose the brush. So we are now using the stack brush. And what we see on the screen is the original photo. And it says, okay, you will be brushing on the HDRscape at 100%. So I just brush in the canyon. And I'm getting those colors in that HDRscape. Now I do want it in the sky, just not as much. So I will decrease to say 50% and I'll brush that onto the sky. This is just so much fun, you guys. You feel like you're finger painting. And is that pretty? I just think that is really pretty without any compromise. So I save this one. This is one more example on the stacks brush. So this is a group of friends. This is actually my fellow Google Photos experts last week at the Google conference. But let's pretend. I want you to pretend that the three guys in here have entered the witness protection program. So they don't want their faces shown. Here's how so they want them blurred out. Tools and lens blur. But lens blur is going to affect the whole, the purpose of lens blur is to have one part of the picture that is in focus and the rest of it out of focus. But I'm going to use the stacks brush to brush the blur onto just where I want it to be. So first step, I want to make sure that all these people's faces are as out of focus as possible, like right there. And I accept that by tapping on the check mark. Now I open up the stack and view edits. And lens blur, I'm going to use the brush. As soon as I tap the brush, the whole picture goes back to normal. And now when I'm brushing, I'm going to be brushing this lens blur on at 100%. So I'll zoom in to Joe's face and just wipe him out. And Nick's face. And then over here. So now, hopefully you won't have a need to use it for that very often, but You probably have had times when a license plate or a phone number has been showing that you wanted to blur out in a picture. Or I have a friend that works with at-risk kids, and she is not allowed to post pictures of the kids, that she has to blur them out when she has photos of them. So it does have a real use. I save that. So what did you think? Anybody ever needed to use something like that? All right. I always like to end with some review questions. And then if you have any other questions, then that's great. But I do have, yeah?
Does it have photo merge for making panoramic images?
Did you get that, Chris?
Does it have a photo merge for making panoramic images?
Yes.
No. I mean, your phone makes the best panoramic images. So I haven't shot separate photos for panoramas since I started using a phone.
Merge two photos together?
What?
Can you compose two photos together? Just two, or?
The only composition tool that it has is double exposure. So if you want to put one and then size it over to the other side, but yeah, it's not intended to do that. Yeah, other tools for that. Actually, Picasa collages had the best tools for that. All right. Yeah.
Why would anybody want to spend a ton of money on the full Photoshop? It looks like you can do this on this free app, and then once you get it in your cloud, you can take it back with any computer and do whatever you like then, right?
No.
I just think that's an excellent question. I mean, I wouldn't. And, you really don't need a computer at all anymore. I mean, I still do, but yeah, it's a very powerful program. Yes.
Can you replace a sky?
Can you replace a sky?
In other words, you have a sky in there, you want to put clouds in there.
Yes, if you have a second photo that has the clouds you want, then you use the double exposure feature and you use the stack paint, the stack brush to just brush the sky on. A little bit tricky, and there are other apps that make that so super simple, but yeah, it can be done.
Another question back there. Go ahead.
For the
Yeah.
HDR function to world, you have to have the picture taken in HDR.
No, that's the beauty of it. You do not have to take HDR photos. It can be done after the fact. And I've tried this because I do have a Canon digital SLR, a $1,000 camera, and I always have it set to take 3 shots, a regular exposure, and under, and an over, so that I can make HDR photos out of it. And I have tested them side by side to take the true HDR photo or the normal photo with the Snapseed HDR applied. And sometimes I like the Snapseed one better, even. So there's just no reason to do all that work anymore.
Chris?
Yeah.
I have an Android phone, and when I swipe up, I don't get that open in Snapseed option.
Right. That's because, and it's in your handouts, right on the first page of your handout. On the Android, to get to Snapseed, you open the photo, you tap the edit button, and then the 9-dot grid, and then you'll see Snapseed. And then when you're done, you just have to tap done. So it's a little bit different getting in and out, but once you're in there, Snapseed works the same on both iPhone and Android.
I also wanted to add a picture that was underneath some neon lights and everything looked pink. Can you take a pink tint out somehow?
Yes, yes. Oh, good question. Let me see. Well, I think the pink tint that you were seeing was my computer screen and stuff, not actually the photo. But yes, there is both a white balance tool and there is a tint tool.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the white balance is really good too, actually.
It does simple things like cropping too and all that other simple.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But Google Photos does that. So if all I want to do is crop and straighten and brighten, I just do that in Google Photos. I only go to Snapseed when I want to really beautify, I call it.
I see.
The class that you offer, the course you're talking about for half price this evening?
Yeah, yeah.
Does it have to be online to do it, or can you download it if you don't have an internet connection?
Yeah, it's just online.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a way to download it.
Go to your website to access that.
Yeah. Yeah, let me show you.
GeeksOnTour.com.
So you go to,
On your handout.
yep.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's in the handout, but let me show you what actually, so it's geeksontour.com/snapseed and then photo editing on mobile. Now this is actually taking you to a different website called geekswhoteach.com because I used a whole different tool for doing this. And let's see. Yeah. And there is the Snapseed class. And this tells you everything it's pretty much everything that I showed you tonight, plus maybe a couple more things. And it uses a video, at least one video per lesson. So that's how you get it. Okay.
Discount
So
code or?
the discount code is in your handouts, golden.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's a brand new class. If you do take advantage, I'd love to have some feedback on it.
Question.
That's it. You have another question, Chris?
Okay.
Don't you feel sometimes like a little bit phony to make an ugly picture beautiful or an ugly girl, pretty girl?
It's a real.
How dishonest it is.
Well, no, I don't. Hey, if I can get rid of these wrinkles, actually, I don't mind them. You know, I've earned every one of these wrinkles, but it still looks nicer. But the main reason I use it is for travel photos, for landscapes where what I saw was so gorgeous and what my camera snapped was just not good enough. So just enhancing. You know, I don't change pictures, I just enhance them. And I think that's perfectly fine. And in fact, I participated in that Scott Kelby photo walk. And in their rules for submitting photos for the contest, they're perfectly fine with all the tools in Snapseed. You know, you can't change anything. You know, you don't put a horse's head on a person's body, but just improving white balance and color and saturation, they're fine with all that. Okay, let's just give you some review questions. To increase the intensity of a given feature, rub your finger left, right, up, or down.
Right.
Left.
Very good. To increase, you rub right. Yeah, to decrease, you rub left. What Snapseed tool will remove a scratch? Brush, heel, curves, or HDR skate? Heel. Very good. Snapseed will overwrite your original with permanent edits. True or false?
Oh.
False. Yeah. And there's lots of different permutations there, so I didn't, but the bottom line is it does not overwrite your original. Where can you find the Geek Snapseed course? geeksontour.com/Snapseed. And lastly, true or false, Snapseed also has a version for computers.
False.
False. This is a case where that phone in your pocket is more powerful than the $3,000 computer on your desktop.
Well, hang on. There's Nick Software, which Google sort of acquired for a while, which is now back to DxO or something. And they do have a lot of capability that is kind of like that. It's a lot harder to use, but it's a plug-in to Photoshop. So you could do some enhancements using the Nick software that are.
Yeah, Snapseed came from Nick.
Right.
And we thought that they were going to keep up the computer version, but they really haven't kept it up, have they? Not that to my knowledge.
Yeah, they do have a new version that they've upgraded, and it's still the same thing, but it's a little bit slimmer and trimmer.
Oh, there's plenty of computer tools, but Snapseed is a mobile device tool. Now, one thing I highly recommend is on Chromebook. A Chromebook that runs Android apps.
Well, that would be nice.
Snapseed is an Android app. So if you have a Chromebook that's a touch screen, it's wonderful to use Snapseed on that big Chromebook laptop screen. That works great. All right. Well, thank you for inviting me. I hope you learned something and take some beautiful pictures.
Right. Thank you.